today's session is going to be about QuestBridge, what it's about, how to go about the process, maybe answering some questions, whether you may or may not be eligible for it. So today, I definitely want to encourage all of our students on this call to ask any questions that you have. You're more than welcome to either unmute yourself or perhaps ask in the chat box. And between Betsy or Mrs. Pena and I will make sure that we answer these questions. But with that said, I just wanted to go over some community guidelines. You guys are already pretty familiar, but if we have any, any forgetfulness that tends to happen, is just make sure, if available to you, and of course, I understand everyone's environment is different. We would love to have you turn on your cameras for a more personal experience. Many of you are already familiar with the raise hand feature. If you don't know how to use it, please let us know in the chat box, and we'll try to help you out. And then again, share any comments or thoughts in the chat box, and we just want this to be a very collaborative environment as well. And without further ado, we definitely want to introduce our guest speakers, who I love their backgrounds. If you don't know already, based on the college that they have on the side, these are two amazing college partners that we've worked with from Scripps College. They'll tell you maybe a little bit about Scripps College towards the end, if they wish, if not during the presentation. But we have Anna Marie Wood, and she's a Senior Assistant Director of Admission at Scripps College. And then we also have Leanne Dominguez, who is a Senior Assistant Director of Admission at Scripps College as well. And they really are very familiar with the QuestBridge process, and we're very excited to have them today. And yeah, without me having to say more, I'm gonna hand it over to both of you.
Great, thank you so much, Denise.
If I start to cut out, just let me know in the chat, because earlier I had no idea that it was cutting out.
No problem. I think Zoom was lagging a little bit today, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Your Wi-Fi is like perfect, Leanne.
It was funny too, because I was leading a meeting. I forgot I was leading, and then my Wi-Fi went out. Awesome. So can you all see the PowerPoint? Great. Yay. Well, thank you for the introduction, Denise. And thank you all for being here. Yeah, so we're both Senior Assistant Directors. We're also both alums. We're also both first gen and went to Scripps together at the same time. So we are very connected, and a lot of our work is connected to working specifically with first gen students, low income students. We're both from Southern California, so y'all are our people. And formally in my job, I'm within the Office of Admission at Scripps, I'm the liaison to the QuestBridge organization. So in terms of the process, I'm the kind of the person that's like running the whole process. But we do have our entire staff present at the conferences that QuestBridge has. And so all of our staff know like what QuestBridge is. But then also Anna has a really great connection to it, and I'll let her share.
Yeah, thanks, Leanne. Yeah, so like Leanne said, Leanne and I, we kind of check a lot of the same boxes. We both went to Scripps and graduated the same year, and we're both first gen. And Leanne takes a big role in the being a liaison with QuestBridge, and then I also have the experience just of going through the college application process when I was in high school through QuestBridge. So I applied to Scripps and other QuestBridge partners through QuestBridge. So I still remember some parts of that experience and navigating all of that. And even still today, just as someone who went through the QuestBridge application process, even though I didn't actually match with Scripps, and we'll talk about what that means, like being a QuestBridge match, I applied to Scripps via regular decision through the QuestBridge process, but I'm still a QuestBridge alum, and I was still a part of the QuestBridge community at Scripps and at the Claremont colleges. So I really like that experience because it provided me with just like another community and mentors when I was at Scripps, but also all of the resources that QuestBridge puts on for their alums. I feel like every week I get some sort of email from QuestBridge about like, how are you doing in your professional life? How are you doing in your personal life? Here's a webinar if you want to learn how to like save for retirement, stuff like that. So they just, I think they just take good care of students through the process from beginning to end. Right. Leanne, I don't know if this slide was you or me. I know we assigned the other slides, but I'll I can go ahead. So our plan for today, I think we'll be here for about an hour. So we want to talk about what is QuestBridge and give you a history, just a small snippet of just how this organization got started, what their mission is, and the timeline for going through the QuestBridge process. And then very important, also really important is the application, which is essentially what is QuestBridge, right? It's an application that you can use to apply to colleges. So we want to go over some tips and tricks of the different components of the QuestBridge application. A lot of it's very similar to the Common Application and some other, application systems, but there's just some things that are a little bit different about the QuestBridge app that we want to go over too.
Awesome. Thank you, Anna. So yeah, definitely if y'all have questions, add them to the chat, raise your hand, and we'll be monitoring those as we go. So QuestBridge was founded in 1994 by 2 alums of Stanford. And it's really developed since then into this national organization with colleges that will partner with QuestBridge to be partner colleges. So we're one of the original members of the partners. I believe now there's 48 different colleges that are part of this QuestBridge organization. And the target audience, I guess, for QuestBridge is low-income students across the country. And it's meant to be another tool that folks can use to engage with colleges that you may have never heard of. A lot of these, I can't even tell you where they are on the map. I could tell you maybe the state. But it's a lot of really incredible colleges that have to meet certain parameters to be eligible to be partners. So while QuestBridge is working with low-income students, the colleges have to prove that they are able to recruit and support the progress of their students through college and to graduation. So while we're working with it specifically in terms of the admission process, the goal is that QuestBridge is connecting you with schools that are equipped to support you and provide resources and community, because most of these institutions are PWIs, which means predominantly white institutions. So when thinking about like different environments, these colleges have incredible resources, but sometimes may have a community that doesn't connect, at least with like my own identity going to Scripps. But what's really useful, like Anna has outlined, is because these college partners have to go kind of through like our own application process, we're also able to create community and create networks of students that then stays with you, not just during your time in college, but like Anna described afterwards as well. And QuestBridge has a lot of components. It's really expanded into this massive resource that students can start using their junior year, but then senior year is really where a lot of their programming exists. And it's, if y'all like after this presentation just want to go to their website, they have so many resources for students, educators, webinars, past recordings, and even if you don't go through the QuestBridge process, all of that information is definitely applicable to the college application process.
Yeah. Thanks, Leanne. So this slide here, like Leanne had mentioned, it shows these are all of the current QuestBridge College partners. So you can, if you want to take a screenshot, this is from their website. You don't have to keep all of them in mind, but hopefully this gives you an idea of just how many different schools there are. Some of these are really large research universities. Some of these are small private liberal arts colleges like Scripps. And they're also all over the country. And so like Leanne had mentioned, to be a QuestBridge College partner, you do have to kind of prove a few things, right? Like being a place that will be supportive financially and academically and co-curricularly of low-income students. So all of these colleges on here do that. You may have heard of also some of them. You may also have never heard of some of them. One I always like to point out is Grinnell. Grinnell is in Iowa. I did not know. I had not heard of Grinnell when I was in high school. And you may be thinking, why would I go to Iowa for college? But they are awesome. They're a great school. So even if you're not familiar with a school on this list, it doesn't mean that it's not a fantastic institution. It could be great for you. And like I had also said, these colleges are all over the country, right? So some on the West Coast, middle of the country, and then also a lot are clustered in the East Coast as well.
Another useful tool on the QuestBridge website, from what we took a screenshot of is every college partner has their own like profile. So it's a really easy way to get to know all of us just on one website instead of like jumping from schools, like different schools admission websites. And one of the main things that I always like to talk about in terms of the QuestBridge College Partner Schools is that, like Anna said, we have to prove that we are financially committed to students, and part of that is meeting 100% of need of students. And that's not just through the QuestBridge College Partner process. So like if you're applying through QuestBridge and are not admitted, it doesn't mean that you are not eligible for the 100% meeting of your demonstrated need. All of these colleges do that already for all of their students. So just something to keep in mind. I try to make that very clear that if the QuestBridge process doesn't work out, it's not the end of the line. And really what I see QuestBridge as is exposing you to all of these different colleges and providing you a direct link and direct connection to them because of the QuestBridge organization.
Oh, and one more thing too, these are all in different parts of the country. And what that means is the weather may also be very different than what we're used to in Southern California, and the towns that the schools are in. So some of these are gonna be in big cities like Boston, or they may be in small towns, like I mentioned, Grinnell in Iowa. And if you are excited about maybe a change of scenery and you want some fall leaves and some cold weather and snow, then there's a lot of options for you. If you're thinking, oh, please no, I can't deal with the cold, then keep that in mind too as you put some colleges on your list, especially with the match process, because it is binding.
Also, if you like these schools and don't want to apply through QuestBridge, you don't have to. You can just apply to these schools through the Common App. Some of these schools also accept the coalition application. So think of this as another way to apply to these schools. Awesome. So this is kind of showing you the timeline, I guess, of how students are connected to the QuestBridge organization. So we'll start at the bottom, and the College Prep Scholars Program is the program that students are eligible for their junior year. So unfortunately, it's too late for folks in their senior year, but if y'all know of younger students or siblings and you're interested in this program, the College Prep Scholars Program is a perfect introductory point into QuestBridge. What it consists of is I imagine a lot of what your staff in your organization do already, like supporting path to college, creating community. There also is a conference component where students as college prep scholars are invited to attend a conference. There's 3 every summer where all of these colleges are present. We did them virtually this year, which actually I think it went a lot better because we were able to meet a lot more students. But this is kind of like an intro into the QuestBridge organization. After that, the National College Match is what we're going to talk about right now. It's the process for applying to college, the deadline for the National College Match. I need to look it up to make sure, but it's I think it's usually in September, so it's a lot earlier than everything else. And no, I think it's in October. I will check and I'll add it in the chat once I know for sure. But then
roadmap, Leanne, I think it's the 29th
of September.
Yeah,
cool. September 29th. So that's what the National College Match is, and it basically lasts from September until December. That's when that process is over. And in December is when students find out if they've matched with a school. And we'll talk about what that looks like. If a student did not match, and the majority of QuestBridge match students actually don't match, and I think that's something that's really important to know, kind of going back to that, remembering that this isn't the only way to get a really great financial aid package, because all of these schools have really great financial aid packages. Once December passes, then you're eligible to still apply to these schools if you were not matched through their regular processes, still using your QuestBridge application. And then after that, then you're kind of in the normal timeline of applying to colleges, where you apply in January and you'll know by March if you're applying to these types of schools. And then I'll let Anna talk about the next 2, since she was involved in these 2 as a student and as an alum.
Yeah, thanks, Leanne. So then once you're done applying to college, which I know maybe will seem far away, but you will eventually be done applying to college and you'll find somewhere that you want to enroll. And if you do end up enrolling at a school where you applied via QuestBridge, then you are part of the QuestBridge Scholars Network. And each partner school has, a QuestBridge Scholars Network. So again, it's like a community of other students who are part of the QuestBridge community, and also just mentors, faculty mentors, academic advisors who care about that process, especially just being a first-gen student. And making sure that you have that community when you're at this partner college. The great thing about being at Scripps as being a QuestBridge scholar at Scripps is that you're a part of the Scripps network, but also we're part of the Claremont colleges. So in case you're not familiar, Scripps is, we are, our own private liberal arts college, but we are in the Claremont Colleges Consortium, which means that you get like 5 schools for the price of 1. So there's Pomona College, Claremont McKenna College, Harvey Mudd College, Pitzer College, and us. Did I say them all? I think so. What that means is since CMC and Pomona are also, CMC is Claremont McKenna College, since those 2 schools are also QuestBridge college partners, you are part of a larger network than just the Scripps QuestBridge community. So that's another benefit of being at Scripps and the QuestBridge Scholars Network, is you have a kind of a larger network than maybe you may find elsewhere. So, and through this, there's a variety of different events, social events, or just like resources, workshops that the network puts on for the QuestBridge scholars at that school. And so it starts from your first year, right? You're transitioning to your first year in college, and you're needing to learn things like how to register for classes, what to talk about in your professor's office hours. If you have confusion about your financial aid package, who do you go ask? All those different types of things, those are resources and workshops that a typical Quest Scholars Network will provide to students at that institution. And then also just fun, right? Because when you go to college, it's not just academics, it's also you're gonna have fun, you're gonna meet friends. And so it's just a network of friends that you'll have when you go to college. And then when you are graduating from college, you're going to be, of course, a part of your college's alumni network, right? Every college, especially the QuestBridge College partners, have a robust, tight-knit, very supportive alumni network. But when you go to a QuestBridge College partner, you also get to be part of the Quest Alumni Network. And that's what I talk about from just my own personal experience as a QuestBridge alum. I'm a part of this community of people from all different colleges across the country who have this kind of shared identity with me. And so there's different, before COVID, there were a lot of like in-person events. So anyone who lived in the Los Angeles or Orange County area, there was usually like a dinner that we could go to a few times throughout the year to network with other Quest alums in that city. So there's stuff like that. And then there's also just like webinars and workshops, like I mentioned, how to save for retirement. Are you ready to buy a house? How does that work? A lot of these are like financial, because we know that that's just an important part of the experience being a QuestBridge student, and just thinking about your life after college and return on investment and finances and everything like that. So even though those 2 things I mentioned, the Scholars Network and the Alumni Association, they're not a part of the application process that you all are probably thinking about right now. But as you think about going to college and what life looks like when you're in college and after college, QuestBridge is more than just an application, it's a community. And I think, oh yeah, this one's me too, yeah. And then Leanne, if I miss anything with this roadmap, just fill in and let me know. So we've been talking about the match a lot. And so hopefully this, you can also, I think, find this roadmap on the QuestBridge website, but this is a really helpful infographic to just understand, okay, how do I apply via QuestBridge and what does this mean? So late summer, which Leanne, I think they can start now, right? Start a free online application. So you can start the QuestBridge application. And the due date is September 29th. So that is when so if you remember any date on here, just remember that one, because it is a hard deadline for submitting the QuestBridge application. And then after you do that, you have some time to figure out, okay, so I submitted the QuestBridge application, but what schools actually a part of QuestBridge do I want to apply to? And so that's where you would start the ranking. And so you can rank up to 12 colleges. And so I don't know the logistics, I forget logistics exactly how that works, but it's a process where you can say, okay, my #1 school is this, my #2 school is this. And then at the other end, QuestBridge is a lot of like tech and algorithm to kind of figure out who you would be matched to. But before that happens, you are notified on October 21st if you're a finalist. So just to kind of recap, September 29th, you submit the QuestBridge application. Then you have about 2 weeks after that to figure out which colleges you actually might consider going to. And then QuestBridge will let you know if you're a finalist for QuestBridge. And then November 1st, if you're a finalist, you submit your match requirements. And then December 1st is finalists who ranked colleges find out if they matched. So what that means is you will find out of those 12 schools that you put on your list, if you got matched with any one of them. Now, keep in mind that you may get matched with the school, you may also not. And like, as Leanne said, that's actually the majority of what happens with students is not everyone matches, and that's okay. You can still apply to the schools via QuestBridge. And it even says here, not matched, that's okay. Review admission opportunities and next steps from ranked schools. And then you have the opportunity to still actually go through the application process and apply to schools. And then December 9th is when you submit the QuestBridge regular decision form to be considered for admission for these, for the college partners. And then of course, fall 2021 is when you'd be applying to school. So Leanne, I know I probably missed a couple of like logistical details on that process. Is there anything else you would add?
Just a suggestion. So since we keep saying that most students that go through the match process do not match, that definitely shouldn't deter you from going through the process. But if the process is too early in your senior timeline, which it definitely is, it's completely okay to not go through this QuestBridge process, but definitely use like the tools that are on the website. But what I was going to say is if you do go through the match process and do not match, you're then in a position to consider applying to these schools still using your QuestBridge application. We call it rolling over. So you roll over your QuestBridge app to regular decision or early decision 2. But often the question I get the most from students is, should I roll over my QuestBridge application or should I submit a brand new common application? Really, I think it's considering if what you submitted for your QuestBridge application since in September, if you want to create edits to the things that you like, your writing portion, your essays, if you want to have the ability to edit those, then I would suggest submitting the Common App. But also, that's why also if you are able to focus on your QuestBridge application, you're able to get through that process a little bit quicker. Most schools, if you're rolling over, will also have a component of a supplement. This is very similar to like the common application that has the personal essay, and then every college has a why Scripps, why Princeton, they'll have that question. The QuestBridge application doesn't have any school-specific questions. So if you are rolling over, we want to know why you're rolling over to Scripps or to Grinnell. And so we ask for that additional response from you. And so that's something to keep in mind. It's all included in, if you do apply to any of our schools, it's included in your applicant status portal. That's definitely something to keep looking at so that you know what you've submitted, what you're missing. It's happened a couple of times where folks think that the rollover process is automatic, and it's not. We want to make sure that we're considering you because you're interested, and you express that interest by submitting that supplement form for us.
There's a question here that says, what happens if you match with more than one school? But you can only match with one school, right, Leanne?
Yes, you can only match with one school. And sorry, I misspoke. I meant to say most schools are binding. So like for us, we match with 3 students during the process. We're actually the smallest of the college partners, so we also match with the smallest number of students. Schools like University of Chicago, they'll match with like 60 students. Pomona College, right next door to us, will match with about 30 students. So the numbers do differ as well. But the schools that do not bind, which I think it's an interesting grouping of schools, it's basically the Ivies and MIT. I think maybe they just want to make sure you still have the choice, of looking at other schools and not just connecting to them because of the title and the name. But if you are matched with any other school, it is binding, and you're basically committing to going to them, similar to the early decision process that a lot of schools have. And then, yeah, you wouldn't match with more than one school because it gets really complicated trying to explain it, but if anybody's interested in medical school, it's the same process as applying to medical schools. The reason that is because the founders of the QuestBridge organization, they're doctors, and they were copying that process, but it's a little confusing. So basically what happens is when you apply to QuestBridge, you're submitting the QuestBridge application. That's the thing that basically stays with you and is how you apply to different schools. If you're selected as a QuestBridge finalist, then you're allowed to rank schools. So that's when research is super important, and that's when using the resources on the QuestBridge website are crucial. So you can really get to know the different schools and decide how many you're gonna rank. You don't have to rank, I think it's all 12. You have 12 slots to rank. You don't have to rank 12 schools. If you find that, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a school, Wellesley College, if you find that Wellesley is like your school and you want to consider it for the match process and that you don't want to get matched or considered with any other school, then you can just list Wellesley. Then on the school's end, we do our own lists. And then we have a deadline where we submit to QuestBridge and they do an algorithm where they kind of go down the list and that's how the matching happens. It's a lot more complicated than that, but then it gets really confusing. But preview for anyone considering medical school, that's what that process is like as well.
It's kind of funny to see how many like tech people QuestBridge has on staff, because I think they need that many people who know how to do this to like do the matching. So it's very complicated, I'm sure, on the back end.
So at the end of this presentation, we're going to share with you all links that we found were really helpful on the QuestBridge website that say a lot of what we're about to talk about in terms of the components of the application, but we're going to go through the components really quickly just so y'all are aware of what it consists of. So obviously, academic and financial information, that includes your transcript, your test scores, any kind of honors or awards. The QuestBridge application, what it does really well is provide you a lot of different spaces to brag about yourself, share information about yourself, but also contextualize your life. So under every section, like under the parent section, any other information you want to add, under like the school section where you list like what schools you've been enrolled in, it asks if there's any context that we should be aware of. So if there is context that would be useful, anything outside factors, academic, social, personal, that were influencing your academic trajectory, that's where that kind of information is super helpful because it gives us the information we might not know. And then in terms of financial information, the QuestBridge application basically combines like the common application and like the FAFSA. It's not as intense as the FAFSA, but it does have some information that you might have to go to your parent or guardian to get that information. But it asks stuff about like your finances, number of people in your home, that kind of stuff, debt, that kind of stuff. Kimberly, that's a good question. We will get to that because I think it depends by school, but that's a really good question. The other part of the QuestBridge application that is very unique to it is the amount of prompts that it provides. It provides a range of long essays, like the personal essay. The QuestBridge application splits it up into two. So there's essay 1 and essay 2. Both allow you to share stuff about yourself. They have different prompts. I forget exactly what the prompts are for both, but there are 2 essays and then a set of short questions. And usually those are like sentence-long responses. But this is how we get to know you really well. And some of the questions are like fun and dorky, like what do you do on the weekend? I guess is not that fun, but it could be fun. And it's just like different stuff that you can talk about. Your transcript, they do require an official transcript, but will accept it if your counselor just emails it to them. So don't worry about like having I don't even know how we would do that, like going to your office now and getting like a copy of your transcript. If there's someone in your life that is like a counselor that can send a transcript, they'll consider it as official. And then also 2 letters of recommendation from high school teachers. Who you pick is really, what I would suggest is picking folks that have connected well with you, that you know really well. You don't have to pick the teachers where you've done like the best, like all A's. Like sometimes if there was a class where you struggled a little bit, but you really got to know the teacher and they see you work, you know, and keep trying. Sometimes those kinds of letters are the most useful for us to get to know you like as a student. But really whoever you have a good connection with, and most important is giving folks enough time to write a letter of recommendation for you. And then the secondary school report from the high school counselor is very similar to the Common App document. It's basically for admission counselors to get to know your school a little bit, get to know what kinds of classes are offered, the percentage of graduation, the percentage of folks going to 4-year schools, 2-year schools, anything we need to know about the curriculum at your school. So you don't have to worry about fulfilling that one. That just has to be filled out by your counselor. And then any standardized test scores, I will look into what in general the QuestBridge schools are doing, but I do know that a lot of our QuestBridge partner schools, including us, now have test optional policies. Some of them are in place just for this fall. Some of them are in place for forever, like ours. But that is, I think, definitely going to be a school by school. Once we switch over, I'm going to really quickly see if I can get an answer to if if the QuestBridge application is going to require them, since we know a lot of folks were never able to take the SAT or the ACT this last year. Did I miss anything, Anna?
That was great, Leanne. The one other thing I would mention, I know I get a lot of questions about this, something from your counselor, like the secondary school report, and just keep in mind, like, we know that you may not know your counselor very well. I don't know if you talked about that, Leanne, while I was typing a response out, but but keep in mind that, like, so if you're worried, like, well, my teachers know me well, but my counselor doesn't know me because I'm at a big high school, that's okay. What's coming from your counselor is for us to get an idea of your school, right? Like the curriculum. Is it a school that offers AP classes? How many students are at your school? Things like that. So that it's more for us to know about your school, not necessarily you. If you know your counselor, that's great, but I know a lot of students at large public high schools do not know their counselor well, and that's not what we expect from that portion of the application.
I just looked it up, and to apply to the QuestBridge process, they are not requiring scores if you don't have them. But it's kind of like a two-step process. You first apply to QuestBridge, and then they select you as a finalist. And then if you're a finalist, you can go through the college match process. It's in that step where looking at each individual school's policies is important. But to apply initially, you don't have to have test scores if you weren't able to take the test.
And then we got 2 questions that I think we'll answer here on this slide. One is, let's see, I think for the essay section, do you just need to complete the QuestBridge essays or each college that you rank? So the way that if you apply, so on the QuestBridge application, like Leanne said, there's these essays, long essays and short essays. So you complete those QuestBridge essays. If you then match with the school, you are done applying to college and you don't have to write any other college essays. If you don't match and you choose to apply to the QuestBridge schools by rolling over and then using your QuestBridge application, then each school may require you to complete an essay just for them. So does that sound right, Leanne?
Yes, it does. And this is where it gets confusing because there's 48 of us, sometimes doing things very different, which is why they created their bios on their website. So you can see exactly at each stage what each school requires. And we'll also link to that because it's a lot. Yeah.
And then the other question was about letters of rec. Typically people say it's good to get one from a STEM teacher and one from a humanities teacher. Is it too big of a deal to get one from 2 humanities or 2 STEM teachers? That's a really good question. I think it goes back to what Leanne said, get letters of rec from teachers that you think will write you, good, strong letters of recommendation. We see applicants where it's from the same discipline or we see ones from across. What schools typically prefer is that it's 11th or 12th grade teachers from core academic subject areas. So like humanities, but also STEM, social science, foreign language, English. Yeah. And also like Leanne said, it doesn't have to be a class that you got a perfect grade in. Sometimes a class maybe where you got your lowest grade, I've seen some of those are the best letters because it talks about how to work through that and talk to your teacher a lot and take out some extra help. So there's no right or wrong way to do the letters of rec. I hope that doesn't provide any more confusion. Okay, so for this slide, and I'm going to include some links in the chat, but these are some more resources for you as you're navigating the application process. All of the QuestBridge College partners have amazing resources on their websites, but also QuestBridge itself, their website has a lot of helpful applications for you applying to college via QuestBridge. There's actually a lot of webinars that are happening right now by QuestBridge about different aspects of the QuestBridge application. They're called QuestCasts. And then there's different short video tutorials if you don't want to join a whole webinar because you're like, oh, I don't want to do any more webinars. There's just short video snippets to get some tips and tricks for the application process. There's also the third one is really helpful. It's an income and assets guide because at least for me, when I was filling out the financial information on the QuestBridge application, all the words were new to me. I was like, what is gross adjusted income? And so there's just a lot of terms that you may probably are not familiar with, and that's okay. But QuestBridge just put together a resource to help figure that out. And then some of the other ones, you know, like there's a blog, and then some other resources about recommendations and writing essays. Oh, thank you, Leanne. You put the link in.
Yeah, so I added the link to the webinars because as we were preparing for this presentation, we realized that there is a webinar next week, next Wednesday, all about completing the QuestBridge application. So if y'all are interested, that's definitely a great resource since you'll be hearing from the folks that are reading the application initially. Okay, so this next page has a lot of words, and I suggest you screenshot it, and I'll go through it, but it gets a little complicated. This is even something that we have to walk through with our staff because these are really important terms, but can be confusing because they all kind of sound the same. So the way it works is folks at this stage are applying to the National College Match. So you submit your QuestBridge application to the QuestBridge staff, and then they read it, and you are either selected as a finalist or a non-finalist. Finalists are eligible to apply to the National College Match process and can list the 12 schools, and they go through that whole ranking, and then the schools on the other end do their thing. So that's what finalists do. And so they're basically applying from September to December. Non-finalists still are able to use their QuestBridge application to apply to the partner colleges. You are eligible as a non-finalist to apply to schools through their early decision 1 processes, early decision 2, or regular decision because the timelines aren't overlapping. Finalist students can't apply early decision 1 because usually the deadlines are around the same time. So think of the National College Match process as another early process, similar to early decision, similar to early action. Should I define what those are, or? Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. The next option is, again, you're either a finalist or a non-finalist. If you're selected as a finalist, you then have the option of saying yes to that offer or no to that offer. If you say no to being a finalist, you're a non-participating finalist. It basically gives you all the privileges of applying to all these different schools, but the reason why folks will go through the non-participating finalist route is that they don't want to be bound to a school. They want to have the choice throughout the whole process, but they're still considered QuestBridge finalists. And yeah, so it's an interesting route, but if the binding part of the process is a little scary, you have an option of not having to go through that process. And then the next ones make sense. Matched finalist is somebody that matches. So for us, it's 3 students a year. They'll find out by December, and at that point, they're done with their college application process. For students that are non-matched finalists, which is the majority, those students then roll over their applications, and they usually find out with enough time to apply to any schools with early decision 2 deadlines because they're usually the same date as regular decision. So non-matched finalists, think of them as non-participating finalists. You can still use your essays, your applications, and you can still apply to these schools using your QuestBridge application or the common application. And then a withdrawal is a student who withdraws from the process. That sometimes might happen if folks hear from like UC schools, or they go through an early decision process as non-participating finalists. So it's basically you just indicating to QuestBridge that you're done working with them. Basically, it doesn't hurt you or anything like that. But that's what they are. Yeah, and I was a non-participating finalist. Yeah. And is there anything on here?
No, I echo what you said about taking a screenshot of this because even if we don't expect that you'll retain all of this right now, but as you go through the process, you might want to refer back. And yeah, so that's the end of our presentation. I know that we have probably some questions to answer. And of course, like we mentioned, the QuestBridge website for you to find out more information, especially like those webinars that Leanne talked about. Should we stop?
Thank you, Leanne. Thank you, Anna Marie. We do have some questions from some of the students. I know I got some private messages. Some students had to log off because they're doing their distance learning. But with that said, I think one of the biggest worries that students have, and I know you guys kind of addressed it, but it's testing. I know a lot of schools are going test optional. But I mean, can you talk on that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. And this is, I think, like a lot of folks are wondering what test optional means. I think there's also some legitimate hesitancy to getting all excited about a test optional policy because it does eliminate barriers. But for some folks, people think like, well, what barriers will then be put in place that are not test scores but are still, like doing what test scores do, which is not actually predicting success of the first year. So what we're encouraging folks is, and it is, if you were able to take your tests and your scores fall within our ranges, then submit them. It can't hurt you. If you don't submit them, that's not going to hurt you either. And we are trained. We know how to read an application without test scores, and to be honest, schools like us, with holistic review, with knowledge of what test scores actually mean, we already were spending most of our time on transcripts and your writing. I think that then brings another question about the role of like pass-fail courses that some schools had to do for last spring. Just know that within our field, we're doing all of this and adjusting to COVID and the pandemic in a way that's going to benefit you. And so for a school that is test optional, I think it definitely requires research on each of the schools to see, well, if it's test optional, like what is their process going to be like now? And some schools might have different opinions, but for Scripps specifically, you don't have to submit your scores if you don't fall within the ranges or you didn't take them. And we'll look at your transcript, we'll look at your letters of recommendation, your writing, those components. Anna, is there anything else you want to add?
I loved how you put it. I think the only other thing I would add is keep in mind that there are schools that are test optional, kind of like actually Scripps, where we decided to be test optional before COVID even happened, because we just have philosophically believe that it's not a part of the process that we need. But then also there are schools that are being test optional because of the situation now, and it's not fair and it's not right to assume that a student can and should take a test. So just keep in mind, like what Leanne said, we are trained and we are looking at the application differently this year. And at the end of the day, it is our job to be your advocate and think about a way that we are admitted students who are going to be academically successful at the institution. And testing is just not going to be one of those things this year for a lot of schools.
Yeah, we really appreciate that clarification. We've had about 3 different cohorts of College Bound Academy. We have our Irwood Scholars, and I know a lot of them have just expressed concern about testing and what that means, so I appreciate that. I think there's another question. I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but I wanted to ask you guys if maybe you want to talk on this, clarify for the students. So one of our students said, if you do match with the non-binding school and submit applications to the University of California system, can you make a decision after you received an update from UC Apps? And I know usually for the UCs, you because Scripps is a private institution, I might answer this question for you all. For the UC system, you usually don't find out until maybe early spring. I would say March, April, around that time. So technically, you're probably going to have to make the decision sooner if you do match with the school. They usually give you a deadline as to when you need to notify them. And Anna Marie, Leanne, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong on that part. I don't know. I'm pretty sure each institution, if they do match, even if it's a non-binding or binding school, they have to respond to them by a certain deadline. But I want to assume that those deadlines are probably different for each school. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think they are. The example you gave, though, so for the non-binding schools, so what are they? Yale, MIT, those schools. Mm-hmm. They will not require you to respond to their offer until May 1. So that would give folks the ability and the time to consider UC offers for those, if you're also applying to or are matched to any of those 4 schools. We give the folks that have matched to Scripps, we give them about a month to decide if they're coming or not. Because even though it's binding, we still have to get an actual action from the folks saying, yes, I accept your offer. folks could say no. Technically, we can't do anything that would, you know, if you decline our offer, that, I mean, it is what it is. And that sometimes happens. I know of somebody, I actually, I'm presenting with one of the admission officers at Grinnell, and one of their students, their semester starts next week. One of their match students just withdrew, and that, I mean, that's fine. That happens for many reasons. It was specifically because of traveling and all of that, but.
Thank you for that. So again, guys, if it's a binding school, they will give you a timeline of when to respond. If it's non-binding, then you'll have a lot more time and you'll be able to look at other options if you apply to other institutions. I don't know if there's any other questions in the chat box, but I do have a couple questions that some of our students that weren't able to attend sent in advance. So one of those questions, and I feel like you guys touched on it a bit in the webinar, but what would you say really makes a student stand out in the QuestBridge process? And maybe you can talk from your experience in reading those applicants.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's what's fun about reading the QuestBridge applications is that they just have, there's more opportunity for you to talk about yourself, your interests, your hobbies, TV shows you like to watch. Those are not things, that's as you have an advantage over someone not applying through QuestBridge with that, because the QuestBridge application is more detailed. And so we often find that like the personality, your personality comes through sometimes more in the QuestBridge app than like a typical student in the Common App. And so I think if you have fun with the QuestBridge answers, especially I'm talking about like the short answers, and use that to just show who we'll get your academic info through, like, you know, transcripts and letters of record and stuff like that, but kind of showing your interests and hobbies are what I love about reading the QuestBridge app.
I was going to say the same thing. There is more writing in the QuestBridge application, but like Anna said, it allows us to hear you more, hear your voice, hear the things that you're interested in, that you think about. And there's a nice balance of questions in the application where you can be like serious, or you can just talk about the thing that you nerd out about at 2 a.m. like I did yesterday researching Kamala Harris' sister. So like it can be fun like that, definitely. And then the other big piece of it is that each section of the application also has an additional information section. So anywhere where you want to or need to provide additional information, you can. The Common App has that as well, but it's only one box kind of near the end of the application. What's nice about the QuestBridge app is that it kind of divides it with like family, personal, academic, social life. And it also has spaces for listing if you have a job. It separates it out from your extracurriculars so that you're still writing it out. That's also something I'll suggest. If you do have a job, or if you have anything that's not homework or sitting in class, it's an extracurricular. So definitely include that kind of stuff. Taking care of siblings, grandparents, family members. I know some students sometimes list like they have to walk from their high school to the middle school to pick up their little sister. Like that stuff counts. So it's taking up time. It's building leadership skills. It's building responsibility. So definitely include those kinds of things. And again, you can also explain like each one a little bit better and a little bit more than you can in the Common application.
Great, thank you both. So we have actually one other question, and this might be our last question to be mindful of your time as well and mindful of our students. Sergio's asking, if you withdraw from a match school, will you have the opportunity to match with another school from the list, or do you lose your match spot?
That's a good question.
You lose your match spot, but you could still apply to the other schools if the deadlines haven't passed.
Yeah, but and you wouldn't be able to match with another school afterwards.
It would just be like the regular process, which again doesn't differ very much in terms of like what comes out of it. Like the financial aid offer is very similar. It's just not binding.
Yeah, so like you couldn't, let's say you got matched with Scripps and then you withdraw from us. You can't get matched at, let's say, like Princeton or Grinnell or somebody else because they already match with students. But you could apply to those schools still.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. I don't know if there's any other questions, but you are more than welcome to ask in the chat. With that said, I just wanted to thank Anna Marie and Leanne for, I know in this virtual space, it's been a little crazier and probably busier for us all, but just really appreciate you for giving your wisdom to our students. And for our students, if you're on this call, remember, you're also a peer mentor. Share this information with your peers, of anyone that might not know of QuestBridge, because I know so many of our students might not even be familiar with it. Please share this information. It's very awesome. And Leanne mentioned that in the chat box, she sent the link for a QuestCast, I believe it's called, that will be taking place next week. So with that said, appreciate everyone for being on the call. Anna Marie, Leanne, I don't know if maybe you guys have maybe like 2-3 minutes in case any students might want to learn more, since you guys are, you know, in the admissions office, and if they might have some random questions. We'll maybe stay behind for a few minutes, but other than that, thank you everyone, and I hope you have a great day.